Hello and welcome to Bust or Trust, a kids' mystery podcast. I'm Tiernan.
And I'm Athena. Bust or Trust is a podcast where we unravel the world's greatest mysteries with help from you, our chief detectives.
We present all the best evidence and then ask you to decide. Which team are you on?
Are you a myth buster like me?
Or are you a myth truster like me? We look into all sorts of strange stories from around the world. No mystery is too big for us. Like, why are we outside today? Athena, where's Bust or Trust HQ gone? Has it vanished? What's happening? Why is that squirrel staring at me?
Don't panic, Tiernan. We are here at Bruce Castle in Tottenham, London, because this is a very special Bust or Trust. It's our 100th episode, and that squirrel is staring at you because your hat makes you look like a giant acorn. You might want to take it off.
Good advice. Thanks, Athena. Phew. We tell you at the end of the show just how to get in touch, so you can let us know if you're on Team Buster or the best one, Team Truster.
So, chief detectives, get ready to take notes and start putting together your case, while we have a quick word with the grown-ups. Hello there, mystery fans. Did you know that we depend on your support to keep making Bust or Trust?
If you subscribe and support Bust or Trust on Patreon or Apple Podcasts, you'll get access to weekly subscriber bonus episodes with extra evidence, ad-free listening, and early access to all our episodes.
And you'll get our weekly newsletter full of fun facts, book recommendations, fun new words, and a monthly colouring poster to print at home, featuring some of the weirdest and wildest mysteries we've investigated.
To support the show and get access to all these great goodies, just click subscribe in Apple Podcasts, subscribe to Patreon via Spotify, or visit patreon.com/Bust or Trust podcast. Or for more information, visit our website at bustortrust.com.
Hello, parents, homeschoolers, and teachers. Trusty narrator here from the Who Smarted podcast. Our 15-minute episodes are perfect for car rides, bedtime, break time, class time, or anytime. We make learning science and history fun and funny for 7 to 11-year-olds with new episodes every week. Look for Who Smarted on any podcast platform or at whosmarted.com. And teachers get a free subscription to our ad-free version by clicking educators at whosmarted.com.
The case.
Chief detectives, this is our 100th Bust or Trust case.
Wow! Happy 100th case day to us! That is so exciting. We've looked at so many mysteries.
We have, and that's why, to celebrate, we are doing a special episode on location here at Bruce Castle in a part of North London called Tottenham.
Athena, you did put in the requests for us to be on location at the mysterious ghostly road in Walua, Hawaii, didn't you?
Yep, and one for us to take another look at the Bermuda Triangle, but you know, from a hotel resort in the Bahamas.
Ah, well, it was worth a try. But I am very excited to be here.
Me too. Bruce Castle is a beautiful 16th century Grade 1 listed manor house. Grade 1 listed means it is a special building that is protected and preserved from any changes happening to it.
It's a beautiful old stately building with brilliant sash windows all over. It looks very grand and very elegant indeed.
Yeah, and right at the front, it's got its own tower. Imagine having your own tower.
I'd stand at the top eating crisps while looking over all my land. It was a manor house and a home to many illustrious and important people for many centuries, until in the 19th century when it was made into a school. It's now a museum with lots of exhibits about the history of the area. Oh yeah, and it's definitely haunted.
No, it isn't. Those are just rumours and stories.
They are very convincing stories, and rather than us telling you just what happened here and whose ghost is said to spook visitors at Bruce Castle, why don't we let someone who really knows the place explain it to the chief detectives?
That is a great idea. Here's the museum curator, Deborah Hedgecock.
Hello, my name's Deborah. I'm the curator of the museum at Bruce Castle, which means that I look after the building and the museum exhibits and the collections here.
And can you tell us a little bit more about Constantia's ghost?
Sure. Our ghost story goes back some 400 years ago, back to 1680, when Lady Constantia was the lady of the manor of Tottenham, and she lived here at Bruce Castle with her husband, who was Henry. He was the second Lord Coleraine. They were married for some years, but Constantia wasn't Henry's first love. It was actually someone called Sarah Alston, but her father disapproved of the potential marriage, so they didn't get married. And so both went on to marry other people. Sarah actually married a very wealthy chap called the Duke of Somerset, and Henry got married to Constantia. But it is said that Henry and Sarah might have been seeing one another through their marriages. But it's also said that Henry grew tired of Constantia, and either Henry locked her up in a room, or she chose to lock herself away in a room, which happened to be below the clock on the clock tower of the building. And the ticking of the clock upset her so that it drove her to distraction, and she fell from the balcony. And it is said that she died from her injuries as a result of that fall. But where was she buried? Because nobody knows for sure, because there's no documentation. But from that stems the stories about her ghost haunting Bruce Castle. And it's said that she is seen on a wild November night from the balcony wailing, and people are said to have heard her as well.
That sounds very convincing.
You're telling me. I'm quite scared about sitting here right now.
Thanks, Deborah. So now it's up to you, Chief Detectives. Does Constantia's ghost really haunt Bruce Castle or not?
It might not be up to them, Athena. I mean, just imagine. What if Constantia haunts us while we're here?
I think there's more chance you'll get attacked by that squirrel because you've put your hat on again. In fact, he's still staring at you.
Ah! Well, then we'd better head towards the Bruce Castle balcony to stop me from becoming a squirrel feast, and also because that's where we'll find the first piece of evidence.
First piece of evidence.
So here we are at the front of Bruce Castle, looking up at the balcony.
There's a great big clock on the front of this building, and on top of the building, on its roof, is an amazing gold weather vane.
Oh, it's so fancy, and I love the clock too. It's all blue with golden Roman numerals. Brilliant. And we're at this bit because the earliest recorded reference to Constantia's ghost that we know about was in March 1858 in the Tottenham and Edmonton Weekly Herald, a local newspaper for the area. The article says, "A lady of our acquaintance was introduced at a party to an Indian officer who, hearing that she came from Tottenham, eagerly asked if she'd seen the ghostly lady of Bruce Castle. Some years before, he had been told the following story by a brother officer when encamped on a march in India. One of the Lords Coleraine had married a beautiful lady, and while she was yet in her youth, had been seized with a violent hatred against her, whether from jealousy or not is not known. He first confined her to the upper part of the house and subsequently still more closely to the little rooms of the clock turret." That's right there. Look, Athena. Can you imagine Lady Constantia being kept in that little room?
Well, it does look a little pokey, but she'd have had a lovely view.
That is true. This is where it gets good, though. The piece goes on to say, "These rooms looked on the balconies. The lady one night succeeded in forcing her way out and flung herself with child in arms from the parapet. The wild, despairing shriek aroused the household, only to find her and her infant in death's clutches below. Every year as the fearful night comes round, it is in November, the wild form can be seen as she stood on the fatal parapet, and her despairing cry is heard, floating away on the autumnal blast." Hear anything spooky that sounds like a despairing cry?
Hang on, let's have a listen. No, I can't hear anything.
Well, I suppose it is February, so we'd have to wait a little while.
I don't think we'd hear anything in November either, apart from the sounds of happy schoolchildren visiting the museum. There's a lot of problems with that article. Firstly, it says Constantia was locked away in a room beneath the clock tower, but a painting of Bruce Castle made in 1686 shows a newly built clock tower and balcony. So that means we can assume they weren't part of Bruce Castle until after Lady Constantia died. The other big issue I have with the article is just who is a lady of our acquaintance. That just sounds like a gossipy rumour. Oh yeah, my friend's friend said. It's very hard to take that as serious evidence. Not only that, but that piece was written 200 years after Constantia was said to have died. Why did no one see her ghost before then? And why has no one seen her since? I think it was clearly just written as a fun, spooky story.
Maybe it took 200 years for Lady Constantia to learn how to ghost properly. It can't be easy to make a despairing cry float away on an autumnal wind on your first go.
I don't think she was just practising up until 1858, or you'd think she'd want to do more than one big performance.
Well, the piece says she can be heard and seen every year on November the 3rd, so it wasn't just one performance. I wonder if Deborah has ever seen her when she's been working here. Shall we go ask?
Yes, let's see what she says as the resident expert.
So you've mentioned that people think that the ghost appears on a certain November night and that noises have been heard. Have you, in your time working here, ever heard or seen the ghost of Lady Constantia?
Well, personally, I haven't. Sorry to disappoint you. But although on one occasion, when I thought I heard someone's footsteps upstairs walking along the long attic corridor, or at least that's what I thought I heard, but I couldn't really work out who that might be. So that was a bit of an unusual sort of sensation and experience. But I definitely have met lots of people who have felt her presence. There was one member of staff called Miss Flint, and I think she lived opposite the museum. And so she's written down some reports of hearing Lady Constantia's cries when she fell from the balcony, and some people have seen eerie lights flickering, and another person was on one of my tours, and she claimed that the ghost of Lady Constantia passed through her as we were walking up the main staircase. So what can you say about that? They definitely did experience it, and I do genuinely believe that that's what they experienced, but for me personally, I haven't got that experience like they had.
But generally, when you work here on a day-to-day basis, do you find yourself just hearing lots of noises of the building because it's an old building?
We do, yes. We've had lots of wind that kind of catches on certain corridors or certain windows. It's when the wind is blowing in a certain direction. So definitely you do hear things that creaks one day but not another.
OK, it is interesting to hear that some visitors have felt a strange presence.
And someone that worked here actually heard things. I mean, that's very exciting. And as you'll see in the second piece of evidence, let's look a little bit more into what Miss Flint actually heard and saw.
Second piece of evidence.
We are inside the Bruce Castle Museum, which is filled with fascinating historical information about the area, including a lovely little Victorian spinning top that I quite like. It's got its own box.
Well, I'm looking at this amazing 1930s motorcycle. It looks so cool.
Don't ride away on it, Athena. Don't. It will cause chaos. But we're here inside the museum because the second piece of evidence is all about Miss Flint. Miss Flint worked at the Bruce Castle Museum as a museum assistant from 1957 to 1975. She noticed so many odd things during her time there that she made a record of everything that seemed unusual. And there were lots. Here's a few of what I think are the spookiest incidents. 1962. A member of staff was alone in the Victorian wing when he heard footsteps above. He went up the staircase, but there was no one there. As he went upstairs, he heard footsteps now above him on the second floor, so he went up further and found no one there either. 1970. For 4 days when the building was empty, a door was heard constantly heavily slamming from about 3 p.m. to midnight by 4 different individuals. Also in 1970, 2 dummies stored on the top landing of the spiral staircase of the Victorian wing were found at the bottom. It would have been impossible for them to fall through the iron railing on the landing to the very bottom of the stairwell. And this one from 1972, which will send chills down your spine. A member of staff heard sobbing coming from the women's cloakroom. They went in to check, worried there was a member of staff in distress. But as they entered, they saw there was absolutely no one there. Woo! Miss Flint made notes of many other creepy happenings too.
Those are spooky, and I certainly wouldn't like to hear crying, then find I couldn't see where it was coming from. Ooh. But no one actually saw a ghost, not even once. And some parts of Bruce Castle are over 500 years old. Old buildings do make strange noises due to noisy gas pipes or air vents, or, like I mentioned earlier, the wind getting in through the cracks. Bruce Castle was already known for being haunted when Miss Flint worked there, so there's every chance that rather than look for a real reason for these strange sounds, it was just blamed straight away on a ghost. Apophenia is what it's called when people make connections between things that are completely unrelated, like hearing a noise and then assuming it must be a ghost that no one has ever seen. Who knows? They could have all been angry squirrels.
Are you only blaming squirrels for all this because there's no bears in Tottenham?
No comments.
Well, maybe Miss Flint was making the noises and pranking everyone. You know, as well as the ghost, which is definitely there. See, Athena? What's that creepy sound?
It's called renovation. They're building next door.
But who's building? Ghosts?
Builders, Tiernan.
okay.
They're building.
All right, Athena. Well, the final piece of evidence shows there is something very mysterious about Lady Constantia's death, which might be just why her ghost is stomping up and down the stairs.
Third piece of evidence.
The final piece of evidence is that no one is exactly sure when Lady Constantia died. It's thought that her death occurred in 1680, but it might have been a different year entirely. Maybe even after the balcony had been built. What's stranger still, though, is that Lord Coleraine claimed he buried her in the All Hallows churchyard behind Bruce Castle. But there's nothing in the church records to suggest she was ever there. So where did she go? And where is her body now?
Now that is strange. Even stranger than a mysterious Miss Flint or angry squirrels. But just because there isn't any information about where Constantia's body was buried in the graveyard, that doesn't mean her remains aren't there. The grounds of Bruce Castle are now a park that people can visit. Many of the gravestones that have survived are hard to read, as the stone has been eroded by time and the weather. So it's tricky to know exactly what they said and who was buried there. It might just be that they were unmarked, which means there is no way of knowing exactly where Lady Constantia is without digging up the whole area. That would be a shame, as it would cause damage to other graves and the grounds of Bruce Castle, which are enjoyed by lots of visitors every year. The reason why so little information about Lady Coleraine exists may be because the lives of women in the 17th century were not so well documented as the lives of men. In fact, a lot of what we know about Constantia is from stories about her rather than official documents. If you get to visit Bruce Castle, the guides there ask that any visitors write their own stories about Lady Constantia and what her life was like, which is a really nice thing to do.
It really is. Chief detectives, do let us know if you decide to write any of your own Constantia stories. Maybe spooky, ghostly ones about her ghost that definitely haunts Bruce Castle.
Yeah, that wasn't quite what I was thinking. You know, if ghosts do exist, though, it must be weird for them to have the whole place to themselves, and then suddenly it's a school or a museum that's full of people.
Yeah, that's true. It must be very hard to get any peace or quiet. You know what? As it's lovely and sunny, I think I'm just going to have some me time and a nice quiet day. It's hard work being 500 years old, you know.
Here is the room where many people say they've heard strange sounds or felt a cold chill.
Oh, for goodness sake, not again. I was just having a sit down. Oh, I'll have to go upstairs.
And if you go upstairs, you'll see the royal bedrooms. But beware, sometimes footsteps have been heard on these stairs when there's no one around.
Oh, for crying out loud. I'll have to wait until nighttime when no one's around. That's when I'll get my peace and quiet. Ah, yes, I can just stand here and stare out of the window at the beautiful grounds and think about...
Welcome to the nighttime spooky sessions. Up there is where you might catch a glimpse of the ghost. Can anyone see anything?
Ah! Boo-hoo, boo-hoo. I just want to be left alone, and I wish people would stop stomping all over my home without an invite.
Did any of you hear that? Crying has been heard to come from within this.
I've had enough. Boo! Finally, peace and wonderful quiet. What is this? What's going on? I've had such a nice time for weeks, and now this racket?
Yeah, apparently this place is haunted, so they're knocking it down to make some luxury flats.
That's it. I'm going to go live on a ghost train. Poor ghost. I would be super annoyed if tour groups were always following me around. Imagine trying to eat a sandwich with 50 people staring at you.
Oh, I would not like that at all, and I don't think I'd ever risk going to the toilet.
No way. You know who's always welcome into our Bust or Trust abode, though? That's right, the Chief Detectives.
And now, for the 100th time, it's time for you to decide. Is Bruce Castle haunted by the ghost of Lady Constantia, or is it all just stories and old building sounds?
It's evidence recap time.
Evidence recap.
The first piece of evidence is the article in the Tottenham and Edmonton Weekly Herald from March 1858, which tells the story of the ghostly lady of Bruce Castle who's seen on the balcony every year on November the 3rd, when her shriek is heard across the area.
The article says the story comes from a lady of our acquaintance, but doesn't ever say who that is, which makes it all sound like it might just have been a rumour. It also mentions that Lady Constantia was kept in a room in Bruce Castle that wouldn't have been built until 4 years after she died.
The second piece of evidence are the records kept by a museum assistant called Miss Flint, who worked at Bruce Castle from 1957 to 1975. She mentioned many strange incidents, including footstep sounds made by seemingly no one, slamming doors at night, the moving of museum dummies, and someone hearing crying in an empty room.
Old buildings make strange noises. It's likely that Miss Flint and other staff had heard Bruce Castle was a haunted building and they blamed the noises on a ghost rather than a more reasonable explanation. This is called apophenia, when you connect things together that aren't anything to do with each other.
The final piece of evidence is that there's no information about where Lady Constantia's body is buried, even though Lord Coleraine said he buried her in the church and graveyard behind Bruce Castle. So there's every chance her body is still in the house somewhere, causing her restless ghost to cause trouble.
Or there is no record of where she is buried because sadly women in the 17th century were not seen as important as men, and often their lives weren't very well documented at all. Everything we know about Lady Constantia, including the ghost story, is from tales passed down by word of mouth. There isn't much official information on her life at all.
We'd like to say a really big thank you to Bruce Castle for letting us visit.
And to Deborah Hedgecock for all her help.
So now we're handing it over to you, Chief Detectives.
What do you think? Are you a ghost lady of Bruce Castle Mythbuster?
Or a ghost lady of Bruce Castle Myth Truster? Get in touch and let us know your thoughts, and most importantly, which side you're on. If you ghost with the flow, you know to join Team Truster.
You've got to be kidding me. Join Team Buster. Send us your voice notes with an explanation of why you're a myth truster or mythbuster when it comes to whether the ghost of Lady Constantia really haunts Bruce Castle or not.
All you have to do is ask your grown-ups to help you email us your voice notes or thoughts to hello@bustortrust.com.
Tell us your name, age, what you think all the evidence means, and please make sure your grown-ups give us permission to use your voice notes or emails in our next episode.
We won't always be able to use all of them.
But we do love to hear them, and here are some thoughts from you lot, our chief detectives, on the last few episodes.
Hello, I'm Aurora, I'm 9 and I'm from Leeds. I'm probably more bust because I don't get how, she'd travel, a 4-hour journey with brain loss and that. So, I'm probably partly in, probably bust.
Nice one, Aurora. Not only did you listen to the evidence, you came to the right conclusion. Team Bust all the way, woo!
Aurora, Agatha Christie had brain moss? She was being controlled by an evil plant? This explains so much.
Hello, I'm Olivia. I'm 11 years old. And I'm Miss Twister on the case of the Jersey Devil. I personally believe, because I've gone over the evidence, and while I do see some hoaxes in there, as I believe the things of the Jersey Devil being shot and with strange bodies, I believe those were just hoaxes. But if you examine, while sand-tailed cranes could be responsible for part of it, like the high-pitched screams, the strange hoof tracks nearby the animal bodies aren't explained by that. And personally, I think that's a good sign that the Jersey Devil may exist. Also, I really, really like your show.
Hi, Olivia. Wow. What I like is I can hear you looking through your notes as you gave that evidence, and that is brilliant. You're a proper chief detective right there, and I think you've really worked this out. I mean, clearly, the Jersey Devil is real.
Well, you know what? Olivia has inspired me to get more evidence to prove the Jersey Devil isn't real, because she's a tough one to argue with.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Always brilliant as ever. We make a fantastic team.
And a fantastic team for 100 episodes. Thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed the show, please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more great episodes.
We love to hear what you think. So please do rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It helps more detectives find Bust or Trust.
Plus, if you pay to subscribe to Bust or Trust on Apple Podcasts or our patreon.com/Bust or Trust page, then you get to hear all our bonus episodes, get our weekly newsletter, monthly colouring sheets, and we'll also give you a shout out on the show too.
Thanks for listening to this fantastic 100th episode of Bust or Trust. Here's to 700 more. We'll see you next time for more Bust or Trust. What do you think, Tiernan? Should we do more on-location episodes?
I'm not sure, Athena.
What? Why? Going round Bruce Castle was really great.
Yeah, but that squirrel is really worrying me. It won't stop staring.
Which one? There's about 12 of them and they're all getting closer and closer. Hang on, what are you eating?
Just some peanuts. I was hungry after all that stomping around a spooky castle.
Oh, not peanuts, Tiernan. Run, Tiernan, run!
Ah!